welcome to Have You Heard with Heather Darling. I'm Heather Darling, and today's guest is Senator John Bramnick. John Bramnick is serving his first term in the New Jersey State Senate, representing Union, Somerset, and Morris counties in the 21st Legislative District. Senator Bramnick previously served in the New Jersey General Assembly for 9 full terms and served for 10 years as the Assembly Minority Leader until 2021. Welcome to the show, Senator.
Great to be with you, Heather.
So you're new to the show. I have a lot of members of the legislature come on, and we talk about bills, budgets, new laws, and that kind of stuff. Are you good with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Great. So tell our viewers about your comedy career.
Well, when I was 38 years old, my wife entered me in the funniest lawyer in New York contest, and I got through 3 rounds, and I came in second. But then New Jersey at Rascals Comedy Club held the funniest lawyer in New Jersey, and I won. And I won 3 years in a row, and then they stopped the contest. So what I did was I trademarked, actually through intellectual property, the title Funniest Lawyer in New Jersey. Kind of like the Muhammad Ali of lawyers in comedy. And I'm not putting my title up unless other people come through the ranks. They got to come up through the ranks, through the comedy clubs, and then I'll go to a match with them.
That's great. You used to have a show. It was called Why People Don't Like You, and I believe it was a CLE class that you taught for lawyers at one point. How does comedy help you in the legislature?
That's a really good question. So one, as a trial lawyer, you're always in front of a jury, but you never know what they're thinking. When you're standing up at a comedy club, you get an instant reaction to people and what you say. So if it's funny, they laugh. If it's not funny, they're quiet. If it's kind of off color, they may groan. Now you get instant reaction to how you act and what you say. That's incredibly important when you're a politician, right? Because people don't necessarily tell you what they're thinking. I mean, there's a few trolls on the internet, as you know, that always express their opinion, but that's normally not the opinion of the public. But when you're in a comedy club, you really get a sense of how people think and feel. So I wrote a book called Why People Don't Like You. And that book is 200 reasons why people don't like you. I mean, I'll just give you an example. Somebody comes up to you and says, "You look tired." What is the point of telling somebody they look bad, right? It makes no sense. Or you come to my house for a dinner party and you don't bring anything at all. I mean, where did you grow up? All little things like that, like if you're the first one to get to the restaurant and other people are coming, take the bad seat, not the seat that looks over the river, the seat that looks back in the restaurant. I mean, I can go on, but it's little things in my judgment that make you likable and not likable.
Senator, is it true that you bought a billboard company? Because when I drive around the state, all I see is billboards all over the place, BramnickLaw.com.
Did I bought a what? I'm
Billboard
sorry, I didn't
company.
hear the word.
Billboard company.
Oh no, I pay that billboard company. And the reason I do that is because in our society, if I advertise on television or I advertise on the internet, people are so busy they don't see it. There's so much noise. But when you're driving a car and you're looking straight ahead, you've got nothing to do. It's the only time, really, that you're free to look straight ahead. It is incredibly impressive how many people see the billboards and tell me about it. Now, people don't call you from the billboard. It just reminds them of you. But think about it. You know this because you're kind of famous in your own right. You know, trying to get through the noise in today's society is difficult. This is the only way I've ever learned to get through the noise.
Well, that and you use comedy. You've got some great commercials out there.
The commercials?
Yeah, you've got some.
I had a little tough time hearing it.
You've got some great commercials out there.
Well, thank you. Well, I feel also about commercials. Some of your political consultants want you to say like this, well, it polls that people want lower taxes. Yeah, I got that part. But people don't believe you're going to lower the taxes. What people want to know is, what is your essence? Are you authentic? Are you real? And the commercials I do, it's trying to tell them who I am. So they get a sense of whether they trust me as their representative. And I use humor as well, but it has a message. Like one of my commercials was in a Western town. I was the fastest return call in government. And government is not other than you, of course, as the surrogate. It's hard to get a return call. The next commercial was all these different extremists fighting with each other and yelling at each other. Well, most people in New Jersey are in the middle. 70% of the people really are in the middle. They're moderates, whether they're moderate Democrats or moderate Republicans or unaffiliated. So I did a message to say, let's stop this yelling at each other and have a civil adult conversation. I did it in a comedy club. It's somewhat funny, but hopefully the message makes sense.
Senator, the state budget just passed. If John Bramnick had exclusive dominion over the budget for the state of New Jersey, what would the budget be?
Well, first, I put a 2% cap on state spending, just the way municipalities and counties and all municipalities have to keep their budget within a certain number. It's 2%. If you allow the state to raise the budget by 10% or 11%, it's not going to be good for the taxpayer in the state. So the first thing I would do is I would make sure everyone knew I can't give you all these special items because the law, the Constitution, prevents us from doing it. Without a constitutional cap of 2%, we're never going to put this budget under control. And second, there's so many of these Christmas tree items. I think there's a Domino's Club in North Jersey that got $50,000, right? Now you might think $50,000 is a lot of money, but that's multiplied over and over again to $1 billion of Christmas tree items. So what you have to do is tell the legislators, listen, I just can't make everybody happy. And then I think we live within the budget the way municipalities do and counties do. From Morris County that they lived within a budget and they do everything they can to stay within the budget.
Are there 5 things, like 5 significant things, in addition to these Christmas tree items that you would cut? And are there any items that you would add?
Would any items that I would cut?
Yes, 5 items that you would cut.
Well, I actually have a list I printed out. I think there's a French museum in Hudson County that got $1 million. There's a park in Essex County that got $1 million. There is, as I said, the Domino's Club. I mean, this goes over and over again. But once again, I think the real problem here is that even if you cut some of these Christmas tree items, the only real discussion you could ever have is staying within a 2% cap. Then everybody understands that we got to sit down at the table and stay within that cap. Cutting 5 items, they would be small items. But most of the money obviously is going to pay for pensions. I would absolutely fulfill my pension obligation, but I would change the pensions in the future. So when you say cut 5, I wish it was as simple as that. It's a complicated budget that takes a lot of discussion, and I'm happy to do that. I just don't want to take all the time of your program to talk about all the different ways we would do that. One way we should deal with property taxes is in Florida, they have homestead. So your property taxes are pretty much capped until you sell your house. And then normally it's a younger family that moves in, and then property taxes go to fair market value. I think if we had something like this, the senior citizens would love it. And the young people, who most of them have 2-income earners, they would be able to afford the higher property taxes. So I have a bill like that, which I've been pushing for years, but so far no success.
Senator, how do you feel about the budget that just passed? I mean, do you feel that it's a fair budget generally, or do you feel that there's so much fat in it that it's just obscene?
Well, I voted no for the budget because it is a cumulative budget. The Murphy administration has gone up double digits. It's the amount of spending is just out of control. And there's been a lot of Biden money that came into the budget. There's a lot of money that came in post-COVID, and this is when we should be looking to return some of that money to the taxpayers. And to me, the only thing they did, they passed a program that in 2026, that's when you're going to get the tax cut. I mean, I don't even understand it. We all voted for it because it's a tax cut. But it makes no sense to me if we have the money to do a tax cut of $6,500 for seniors. Why are we waiting for 2026? So I would have taken all of that excess money and with some in surplus, and I would have started to give it back to the taxpayers now as opposed to some promise in the future.
Senator, flooding has been a growing problem in our state. And not long ago, a couple of years ago, a lot of attention was paid to some towns like down in Raritan being underwater and things like that. We got national attention, we got press coverage, we got federal money, speaking about money from the Biden administration. What has been done with that attention, with those funds, to address these water issues that we're having?
Are we talking about flooding?
Yes.
Flooding type
Yeah.
issues?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting because I was just in Middlesex and I toured Middlesex and we saw some houses that are about to fall into a river. Once they start these projects and you get the Army Corps of Engineers and they start to change things upstream, then downstream gets the reaction of the work upstream. So yeah, they stop the flooding upstream. And the reason I'm giving you a long-winded answer is because of the amount of money you need in order to fix all of it is billions and billions and billions. Now, most of this money comes from the federal government. So you may want to direct some of these questions to Congress. The state surely doesn't have enough money or the resources or the Army Corps of Engineers to fix some of these ongoing flooding problems. So whether it was Greenbrook or whether it was Middlesex or whether it was Cranford, it really takes billions of dollars of federal money, the Army Corps of Engineers, and a project that doesn't simply stop upstream. So it is a major, major issue. But once again, most of that is federal, almost all of it.
Senator, we're at the point in the show where we have to take a quick commercial break. So everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Have You Heard and Senator John Bramnick.
I'm Steve Cooper, the host of Cooper Talk Local, and I'm only as hip as my guests. And every week I'll be bringing in locally established musicians, comedians. My guest is one funny mother, Dina Blizzard, to talk about the entertainment world.
We quickly had a hit single and we toured the world and made records as bands do.
And life in general.
I always felt the music and I always would stomp my foot. I would always throw myself around and that was just natural.
So don't forget, check me out on RBN television.
Weeds, they have you surrounded. You just gonna stand there? Or are you gonna take your lawn back?
We're gonna take it back.
We're gonna take it back.
With Scott's Turf Builder Triple Action, it gets 3 jobs done at once. Kills weeds, prevents crabgrass, and keeps your lawn growing strong. Glorious!
No.
Get a bag of Scott's Triple Action today. It's guaranteed.
Feed it, lawn. Feed it.
Hi, I'm Angela Pipersberg, and I have a new show here in RVN Television called The Angela Pipersberg Show. And I want you to join me every week as I sit with guests and we discuss their life journeys, share wisdom, and tips that will inspire you to live your best life. Don't miss The Angela Pipersberg Show every week here on RVN Television, where we're celebrating life and we're inspiring you to greatness.
Hey,
Welcome back to Have You Heard with Heather Darling and today's guest, Senator John Bramnick. Senator, when we went to break, you were talking about flood money that the Congress and the federal budget could give us to help things. But on a state level, what's being done to sort of temper a growing population, the affordable housing requirements, and the flooding issues that we're already having?
Well, it's a nightmare. And here's why it's a nightmare. The state legislature is afraid to handle affordable housing policy. So what they've done is they've ignored it and sent it to the courts. And let me be very specific. So in a town like Westfield or Summit or in Cranford, builders come in and say, we want to build 1,000 units. Well, you have to go to the court in order to change the zoning laws or amend the zoning laws or violate the zoning laws, and the courts make this decision. Why? Because the state of New Jersey, the legislature, has completely abandoned any policy on growth or on affordable housing. So the state of New Jersey needs to say, we're going to have affordable housing. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's how we're going to administrate it. Right now, the courts make that decision. That makes no sense. The courts don't necessarily understand every flooding issue. They don't know about the cost to schools. They don't know about the infrastructure. They're just making these choices based on one superior court judge's determination. So the legislature needs to set the rules. They're afraid to do so because it's very hard to determine how to deal with affordable housing. What they should do is they should find, there's many areas we could put affordable housing, but it has to be a statewide policy, not a numbers issue granted and dictated by the courts. It is very expensive and it makes no sense.
Senator, what is your opinion on rushing into solar, wind, and other alternative energy sources and doing away with fossil fuels without regard to some disastrous outcomes that we know can happen?
Well, the policy now of the Murphy administration, in my judgment, is pretty political. It's not a practical policy. They'll say, let's get rid of fossil fuels, let's get rid of stoves, let's get rid of gas, and we have no idea where we're going to be 10 years from now. So to say, we're going to get rid of all this, 10 years from now or 15 years from now, it's absurd. You have to make a determination on how to deal with energy when the technology is available. Right now, the technology for wind or solar cannot possibly fulfill the needs of the state. So why do you say in X amount of years you can no longer have a gas stove when you don't know? Same thing with electric cars. I don't have a problem with electric cars, but we don't know where the grid's going to be and whether the grid's going to be able to keep those electric cars going. So I'm a practical person. We should make those decisions on how much wind, how much solar we can use, what would it fulfill, but just don't in advance say we're getting rid of fossil fuels. And I think that's kind of what the left wing does. I don't think it's a bad intent. I just think it's just not common sense.
Senator, do you know, does anyone in the legislature actually know what it would cost to build a power grid that would be able to handle all of those electric devices if we were to get rid of fossil fuels?
I've never heard a prediction, but I don't think they're even capable of making that prediction yet. And they know they don't have the money. So there's no way you'd even spend the money to predict what it would cost because you don't have the money to do it. This all has to be phased in over a long period of time. And that's what I'm hoping, that common sense retakes the energy policy in the state, not just pie in the sky.
Senator, education has long been a significant issue in our state. Before COVID, the discussion was consolidation, and then during COVID, it kind of shifted to keeping kids in school. And now the sex ed curriculum has really become the big issue. And the legislature's already weighed in on that, but is there a push toward consolidation at this point? Does that continue to exist?
Well, if we're talking about consolidating school districts, this can be one of the most dangerous policies ever. If you recall, John Corzine, the former governor, wanted to make county schools. Now, let me give you an example. You choose to live in, let's say, Cranford. You choose Cranford because you like the schools. Well, if Union County is then taken over by the Elizabeth leadership, because that's the seat of the county, and now they bus you anywhere in the county determining on, what schools are available. People are not going to be happy with their choices because they chose Cranford. I am very, very in favor of local school control. It's about the only thing that runs well because the parents are on the Board of Education and you go to your local school. There's a court case pending right now which wants to take away your right to go to a local school. You're not hearing a lot about it. But if that happens and it turns out they start busing kids all over a county and to other districts, parents are not going to be happy. You get moms and dads mad when it comes to their kids' education. You ain't seen nothing yet. You think there's a concern about government? Take away their local schools and see what happens.
Senator, where is the legislature when it comes to support of charter, religious, and other non-public education alternatives?
Well, obviously, the administration of Governor Murphy has not been supportive of any charter schools. Clearly, the legislature, dominated by the Democrats, are very concerned about opening more charters. So before that, when Christie was the governor, you saw a lot of new charter schools. You're seeing none of that now, though there is a demand, from what I see, of more charters. And depending on what type of charter school you open, then the devil's in the details. But generally speaking, Democrats are not allowing more charter schools.
You're known for being a very moderate Republican in a state that trends blue. Radical, as they say, ends of both parties have moved so far to the left or to the right that people that were in the middle seem to have moved even closer to the middle. So where do you think that the pendulum stops swinging or the needle stops moving on this in a blue state? Do you think that we end up in the middle, or do you think we end up moving further to the left?
Well, when you have one party rule in Trenton, right now it's been Democratic one party rule. Things move to the left. And I'd give you some examples of really some radical left-wing policies. If you had all Republicans and a Republican governor, even though you had a blue state, things would move to the right. And that's mostly because the way we have gerrymandering, that the elected officials tend to protect their wings. They know in the Democratic primary, they're worried about their left, and the Republican Party, they're worried about their right. So this, unfortunately, and I believe that this is a very moderate state. 70% of the people in the state are in the middle. So the fact that you have one party rule and it's Democratic one party rule, things have moved far to the left. I'm happy to give you some examples of that. And that's why I think most people, and look, the moderates and people in the middle don't talk, right? It's only the extremists who get on the TV shows. They actually wouldn't let me go back on any more shows because they said, I wasn't strong enough as a Republican, meaning I wasn't right wing enough. So they go, we want controversy, and that's what my people told me in New York.
Wow. What are the three biggest problems, in your opinion, facing the state of New Jersey today?
Well, we know taxes. I mean, everyone knows that, and that's why people are moving and seniors are leaving, and there's an exit of this state of just incredible wealth. The second thing I think that's really on people's mind is crime, because people want to feel safe. And we need to modify bail reform because, people are allowed to go free even if they stole a car twice. They don't stay in jail. And then we're convicted, they get probation. So the bad guys know what the deal is. So I think crime has become a very, very significant issue. The third one is government needs to be responsive. I tried to call the Treasury Department with a phone number that I just got on the internet. I couldn't reach a human being anywhere under any circumstances. DMV, at times you go down there, it's a nightmare, right? You walk in and whatever it is, you don't have the right documents. So people are frustrated. Labor Department, no one could get a hold of the Labor Department and get disability, even during COVID. New Jersey government hides behind their voicemail. And that is very frustrating. So, in essence, we need in New Jersey those three items: responsive government. We need to change the laws with respect to how we deal with crime. We need to make it more affordable, and we have to have faith in the future in New Jersey. And right now, people are very pessimistic about New Jersey's future.
Senator, I got the wrap it up sign. I want to do a lightning round with you. So, will we see you in the next gubernatorial race?
I can't answer that because I've got to win my 4-year term, but I can tell you what you're going to see. Whether I'm in the race or I'm not, and that decision will be made after November of this year, I am going to say that Republicans are never going to win unless they trust us. And if you have hatred towards, Murphy, or you hate Biden and you look like you're mean-spirited, and there's many people, there's one guy on the radio acts like that, there's people always criticize. Stop yelling at the other side and convince people why they can trust us to take over. If they think we're nuts, right, and January 6th didn't help us, and in my judgment, Trump doesn't help us when he runs, his mouth, okay, we have to win the credibility of voters. I'm going to be on that message for the next couple of years. It might be on a campaign trail for governor, or it just may be me, John Bramnick, going around the state talking about how we win. So I'll let you know about that.
Senator, next question. When is your next show, your next comedy show in Jersey, and where can our viewers catch your act if they want to?
Great. Well, I've got a couple coming up. In July 23rd, I'll be at the Surflight Theater in Beach Haven. At the end of August, I will be at Catch a Rising Star. I can't remember. I think it's August 26th. October 28th, I'll be at the NJ PAC for an hour and 15 minutes of All About New Jersey. Those are the three major comedy acts I have coming up over the next few months.
All right, so going back, you were quite an athlete. We met through a mutual friend about 10 years ago, not long after I stopped competitive bodybuilding. And there have to be at least 50 photos of you and I squaring off out there on the internet. We've got an arm wrestling video that Governor DeFrancesco took, and I think we have a quick 30-second clip that Bernie did of you and I throwing some hands a little bit, playing around with some gloves on. So when are we going to finally schedule that celebrity boxing match? Because I know you're training with Jerry Cooney. You got to be ready by now.
I think I'd rather just hug you, okay? Because I think that'll work out better than me getting beaten into a pulp, right? So, yeah, I'll go with it. You promise not to hurt me.
Senator, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. It's always fun and informative, and I look forward to seeing you out and about the state.
I love you, Heather. You're the best, and we're lucky to have you in Morris County and New Jersey, and so lucky to have you.
Thanks, John. Same to you. Good to see you. And everyone, thank you for tuning in today. We'll see you next week for another episode of Have You Heard?
Thank you so much.